Right, there are 53 charges. The first two, Mark Leonard has been found guilty on the first two, which are the felony murder cases. Rich Van Wyk has been inside. He just came out of the court just a moment ago. Tell us, what was the reaction in court? What did the family, what did Mark Leonard do? What was their reaction?
We had a very limited view, Scott, of what was going on, but I can tell you it was energetic in the courtroom before the jury walked in. The jury walked in, they looked calm, they looked relaxed, like it was another day in court, almost as if they were relieved. They started reading off the guilty verdicts, and you heard the judge say repeatedly, "We, the jury, find Mark Leonard guilty." When I left, they were up to their 5th count. The guilty counts include 2 counts of murder, the conspiracies to commit arson, and when I left, 1 count of arson. Typically what happens in cases like this, Scott, when I've seen before, once the jury starts and they convict them of 1 arson, it typically looks as if it is going to be guilty as charged, at least through the charges 1 through 51. 52 and 53 is what we're watching.
Yeah, that is what we're watching. So far, 5 guilty verdicts against Mark Leonard for the 2 felony murder cases and the few arson cases that Rich was in. We understand now that he's been found guilty through counts 22. So Mark Leonard found guilty on 22 counts. And as we get ready to see counts 52 and 53, this is the knowing murder. Explain to our viewers why it would be important for the prosecution to get guilty verdicts in those.
This is where it gets complicated. The jury is going to be deciding exactly what they believe Mark Leonard knew, what he was thinking. Under Indiana law, they don't have to prove that he intended to kill anyone. They have to prove he knowingly killed someone. And knowingly, loosely defined in legal terms, mean that the individual knew the possible consequences or likely consequences of his actions, and that a reasonable person either knew or should have known. And that's one of the things we're going to be watching, because if found guilty of knowing murder, he is then becoming eligible for life without parole. And that is the most serious of all punishments, second only to the death penalty.
So you were in there. Could you see either Jennifer or Dion's fathers? Could you see their reaction? What reaction did Mark Leonard have at all?
The judge, who has been very sympathetic to families and victims, the judge who has at times been jovial in court when time and circumstance permitted it, was very serious that he didn't want any reaction whatsoever from anyone on either side of this case. I tried to get a look at Mark Leonard. I could not see him, though. For the first time, though, he came to court today wearing a sport coat in the presence of the jury. What that means, I don't know. Up until now, it's been a shirt and tie. Today, wearing his sport coat. I could see the victims in the first row. These were people who have homes in the neighborhood, live in the Richmond Hill neighborhood, and there was a sense of relief. We were actually joking about a few things. Became then very serious, though, as we got close to the judge and the jury coming in. Some of them, I noticed, had locked arms. That was pretty touching.
First responders were in there as well. And you're getting emotional because you've covered this trial for a long time.
When you live this for as long and you witness the testimony, it becomes difficult. And to say that jurors could not be moved by what they heard, I think would be inaccurate. We saw firefighters in there today. I didn't see any of the people who tried to rescue Dion Longworth, but these were people who worked the investigation. But again, there was just a very, very quietness in the courtroom. There were no cheers. There were no grand sighs of relief. There were no yes. I think what we're going to hear from witnesses, or rather victims, when they come out, a sense of appreciation, a sense of relief, a sense that after 2.5 years, they're finding justice that they wanted. The big question now is going to become, perhaps tomorrow, when there's going to be a separate hearing on life without parole.
Right. And of course, this is bringing an important step, obviously, to Mark Leonard, knowing what his future is. My whole hope is that we never lose sight of the fact that these two people were killed in this blast, that Jennifer and Dion Longworth, that they still remain the focus of what we're doing here today. And it was important for us to talk with these dads who've lost their son and their daughter. They have, and we understand now that Mark Leonard has been found guilty on all counts. And again, getting those guilty verdicts on counts 52 and 53 opens the door for life in prison without the possibility of parole, which is what the prosecution wanted.
And I think we look further into this for a message. There are 3 other defendants going to trial on this, awaiting trial, Bob Leonard being one of them. We had a trial that went on for 19 days, 170 witnesses, 2,200 pieces of evidence, and the jury reached a decision in less than 3 hours. It was about 2.5 hours in which they reached a decision. That is almost unheard of in a case of this magnitude. John Longworth, who we spoke with earlier today, he was very composed out here. He got to the courtroom, sat down, looked at the people around him, and he was trying not to cry. I was, again, speaking to some of the victims prior to the verdict. And these people were eager for something. They've been waiting a while. Now, remember, it's going to take quite a time to get through all these charges. 52 of them. The judge looked like he was getting through 5 or 6 a minute. That's a few minutes. After that, there's the questioning of the jury. They have to talk to the jury foreman and ask him if this is a true conclusion, confirm the verdicts. Then there's going to be setting of a hearing we expect tomorrow in which the prosecutors will present evidence they believe qualifies Mark Leonard for death without parole. There will also be other testimony going on there. So there's a lot of legal business to take care of, I think, before we start seeing people come out of there.
Yeah, in fact, that's why we keep glancing behind us here, because that's the door leading into the courthouse. This is the way that the defense and prosecution and family members, any other resident of Richmond Hill who's inside the court, that's how they would come out. So we would just want to make